All right, and we are live. Welcome to the weekly BrainDrive development call update live stream. We do these calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, live stream to go over the development progress for the BrainDrive project from the previous week and line up our tasks for the coming week. Our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems. I'm Dave Waring, and I handle the operations side here at BrainDrive.
And I'm David Jones, and I handle the technical aspects here at BrainDrive.
If you're new to BrainDrive, we're an open source MIT licensed user owned AI system. Uh, BrainDrive is built so that you always own and control your AI system, no lock in, not a platform, not to a model, and not to a particular technology choice. So, how do we do this? We do this by putting everything that makes your AI system personal at the center of our architecture: your documents, your preferences, your history, your skills, your workflows, your tools, or at least the definitions of those tools. We call this your memory. And your memory is what makes your AI system yours and what you'd want to take with you to any AI system that you use. The architecture that BrainDrive is built on guarantees that every component depends on your memory, and your memory depends on nothing else. Models, interfaces, tools, they all plug in and swap. Your memory doesn't care and nothing resets. This also means your BrainDrive improves as fast as the ecosystem does. New features and functionality arrive via tools, not a code base, not an expanded code base. So you can use any publicly available tool in your BrainDrive or build your own. This means we don't have to build a new open source ecosystem on top of BrainDrive. We can absorb and leverage the open source ecosystem that we've spent the last several decades, the open source community has building. The architecture behind all this we call the personal AI architecture. You can see that at personalaiarchitecture.org. That is also open source MIT license, and we're actively building on that right now. BrainDrive is our implementation of this architecture, but the personal AI architecture is designed for anyone to build on. It's language agnostic, just four components, two APIs, clean boundaries, build it in Go, Rust, Python, whatever you want. So if you're here to contribute to our project, our implementation, BrainDrive, you're welcome here. You're also welcome here if you want to use the personal AI architecture as a reference for building your own personal AI system, and sort of following the BrainDrive example. This call is also for you. So we're in the final stages of launching BrainDrive. And in today's call, we're going to talk about our progress from the previous week and plan out the next week of work. And if you have questions, comments, or ideas as we go through the call, please hit us up in the chat. Or if you're watching this on YouTube as after the live stream, we will answer comments and questions there, also on our forums over at community.braindrive.ai. So with that, I will turn it over to Dave to update us on his development progress from last week, and I'll also share as we go along what I've been working on.
Okay, so let's start with, I guess, the first thing. I always like to start off Monday. I know we have the call coming, so I was like, I try to find certain things that I didn't know. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, who knows? Maybe somebody else didn't know. Out of the 10 things that people are using AI for now, BrainDrive hits 7 of those 10. So that was kind of an interesting perspective of from therapy to of that kind of regard, organizing my life, healthier living, making better choices, creativity for idea, throwing ideas and stuff like that. There were very few things that it didn't hit on, and those things we'd probably never touch, which were the other three. And they were coding, because we're not going to make it a coding app. It just that won't fit in any capacity.
At least right now.
At least right now, but you won't be going, oh, I'm going to do Python. I'm going to use BrainDrive. It's like you
Right.
might code for BrainDrive inside it, as we see, but I'm not going to get into that one. And then, of course, nonsense. We're not going to get into meme factories probably or anything like that. So to hit 7 out of 10, I thought was like, we have a lot of room to play with and wander. And for as people come in and want to find something to do with it, they'll be able to do that.
Ugh,
So,
there we go. Sorry.
yep, no problem.
Keep going.
Okay, so I was going to share, but you're already there now. Um, BrainDrive in itself, we've gotten the core down pat. We're using it to this right now. Dave used it all weekend for fine-tuning the flow. And I have been dialed in on the tech side. So we're kind of now this week we're merging together and we're going to get everything combined. And basically, for I'll call it a V1 or the MVP, we're kind of done. And it's time to look forward to in that direction. But basically, we have the what 4 or 5 core places of people. Everybody has these parts of their life that they could probably use some management on. And rather than look at, expensive coaching, uh, group activities or whatnot, or maybe you just don't even want to share with another human being some things going on in your life. Because let's be honest, everybody has that little dark spot in their life. I don't want anybody to know about that. So this can allow you to not only talk about it, but even perhaps get some insight on different directions you can take with it. And at the end of the day, it's like, a little help of guidance tool of, as Dave and I were talking about originally, like what's important. And that first 5 minutes of for somebody to say, I'm going to dump you with something, and in 5 minutes, helpful hints on how to turn that around.
Yeah, and this is what we call getting over the cold start problem. So BrainDrive is set up so that you come right into these different areas of your life, but
Mhm.
you can also create new projects or start a new project. And BrainDrive takes you through an interview and a spec and a build
Yep.
process, just like if you're a software developer you're familiar with, and helps you get organized and really zero in on what is it actually that you want to accomplish. Because some people say, like, oh, I want to have better relationships. Well,
Yep.
what does that mean? Right. And what does success look like to you? And then, having that thought partner to go back and forth with to really dial in those user stories,
Yep.
for what success looks like to you, and then create a plan around that you can then collaborate with the AI to really take yourself to the next level. And like Dave was saying, these are services that, the richest among society have had paid for a long time. And AI really democratizes this. The expertise is now available to everyone, but no one's really packaged this in a package that is accessible to
Yeah.
everyone. And
Yeah.
that's what we hope to do here at BrainDrive. And that's what this MVP is right now,
Yep.
is this is and then beyond this, it runs locally on your own computer. It builds out all of this context and all of these files that you're building here live locally on your computer. You can edit them here, or you can edit them on your computer. The AI can edit them, and you can really collaborate and partner with your AI to take your career to the next level, to take your relationships to the next level, to take your fitness to the next level. And we're dialing in the background prompts and spec and build plan templates to really make this useful for anyone that
Yep.
wants to improve in these areas.
Yeah, because to say you don't have one of those areas, it probably means you need more help there than you realize. To me,
Yeah.
it's like because it's like those 5 areas are just everybody.
Yeah.
That's your if you have a food triangle, so kind of like that, that's your life, whatever you want to call it, shape. So it's like you really have to kind of invest in it to get something out of it,
Right.
and you'll have a coach there that's on par with probably the best in the world. Because I mean, anybody who's watched AI a little bit, you've seen him mimic Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
or any of the real big coaches. They've been trained on that, their style, their ability. So you instantly have access to perhaps the best coaching and ideas, and to take away from that and improve many aspects of not just your life, but even your hobbies.
And
Like,
unlike the chat GPTs of the world, you're building a compounding asset here that compounds for you
yep.
instead of that big tech company. So the first sort of milestone for us, which I believe we completed last week, is we needed to validate the personal AI architecture that we came up with, because we really we want personally, and we also want all BrainDrive owners. We want you to be owners and not users of this
Mhm.
system, and that means not just for now, but forever. And that means we need a system and an architecture that allows you to maintain ownership and control over your system now, but also that adapts at the speed of AI. So
Yep.
I think last week's biggest we had multiple
Yeah.
milestones,
Yeah.
but the first big one is both you and Navneet. So we now have two developers that have separately, on their own path, validated that this architecture works. Yes?
Yes, yes, we had, quite a lot of similarities we came across, and where we differed were, I guess, Coder's personality. I want to implement one way, he wants to implement the other way. But
Which is great that it
yeah,
accommodated that, right?
yeah,
That's what it's designed to accommodate.
and for me, the cool thing was at the end, we both had the same basic application. It was just done different. The implementation was different, but the architecture we both had followed, we both had adhered to, and adopted. And then
Right.
at the end, we were able, hey, I can have my conversation. I have my memories separate. There's no lock-in from the different aspects that normal systems would carry baggage to.
Right. And so that's a huge milestone is we now believe we have an architecture that we can not only build on today that guarantees ownership, not because we say you own your AI system, because it's architecturally guaranteed as long as you follow that architecture, which the BrainDrive implementation is. And now we also have a reference implementation for other people who want to build systems
Mhm.
on top of the personal AI architecture. And we have BrainDrive, which is
Yep,
our product that we're
yep.
building on top of the personal AI architecture. So I would say, I think both Dave and I came into this call a little bit like, oh man, because there's so much work that's being
Yeah,
done now. But like, I think looking back on the last week, it was actually really a really big week.
yeah, and which left you exhausted because it was like
Yes.
I really had to disconnect it this weekend just so I wasn't like, oh my God, last week never ended. Or,
Right.
because if you didn't just kind of, okay, because we have a whole week, we have a whole new set of challenges and a
Right.
whole new lift. For me, the second part though was that we wanted swappable. We wanted things to not be locked in, and Dave had did the user interface the way he wanted the user to experience it, which was his primary goal right there. And then for me to be able to take that, and the architecture is so adaptable that I was able to within one day go, here, it's running. And it wasn't a heavy lift. It wasn't, a lot of things going up and down or unexpected. It was just simply let's dot the I's to build the adapter level, and then it was up and running. And we've had very few issues from both the front end and the back end after that occurred.
Awesome. So, we now have also validated that the architecture not only can be developed on top of, but these use cases, at least if you're using a state-of-the-art model
Mhm.
currently, we haven't done much testing I haven't done any testing with this. With local models, I doubt it works that well because you need an advanced model with tool calling, et cetera. But if you're using a state-of-the-art model, like I went through this and pretended like I was a sales, manager that wanted to become a CEO and I'd run a big sales team, which is actually something I did in the past.
Yeah.
So, and I went through and it really does feel like, you're talking to someone over chat that really is working to understand and has this capability to help you. And I think the cool thing about this is like it really we say coach, but it's like it really like empowers you to
Mhm.
like understand enough about this to make your own decisions,
Yep.
and I think that's what a good coach does. They're
Yep.
not out on the
They're not
field
telling you
making the
what to do.
plays.
They're giving you this little field that you can play in, and you're like, I'm going there.
Yeah, exactly. So I really feel like this is, and I would say number one, the first run out for this I did for relationships, and that's a private one that I'm not
Yeah.
going to share here on the call, but like I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is actually really good. Like I'm going to follow this. And that was
Yeah.
like the first, zero to first chat.
Yep.
And there's little things here and there like UX wise and stuff, but like I was very pleased. And that's the starting point.
Yeah,
So,
because
we
I
can
did
now
almost
optimize.
my first one was, I know you went with the relationship. I went to the career one, and I went with something that I have never done. I've never been on Upwork. I honestly have no desire, but I thought it was for every developer. That's where a lot of them cut their teeth on. So I was like,
Right.
let me approach the career one with that aspect. And it was pretty dialed in on, hey, this is what you really need to be doing if you want to take this seriously.
Right.
You
And
know,
we don't
so
even have it hooked up to the internet yet either. And I
it,
think, yeah. So this is just the model. And were you using Sonnet 4.6 as well?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yep. So
And
Claude Sonnet 4.6 is what we're working off of right now to get everything dialed in, and then we'll start looking at local models and perhaps putting some crutches in for those. But Sonnet 4.6 seems pretty dialed in on this already,
yeah,
right
I
out of the
think
box.
local, the lowest I can conceivably see going perhaps is the OpenAI's the 20B model.
Yeah.
Because that has really good tool calling involved, is really good responses that people still use to this day for a fine-tuning platform. Not that we're getting into that, but it's just it's still that relevant of a model. Um, but at the same time, it's a pretty sizable little beast. You'll be having to have some hardware to get somewhere on
Right.
that one. But we're going to
Right.
try it like the 3.5 from Quinn. They're new. They've always been quite close to the state of the art. So we have to, I mean, I have to see how the 4B to the 9B range holds water with like that. And then they have some Opus 4.6 reasoning models that have been trained based on the 3.5 from Quinn. So there could be some crossover with Opus's reasoning capabilities with a smaller model. We could see some leverage out of there.
Yep. All right, great. So that's where we're at currently in the testing phase. But I think, I'm comfortable enough to put this out there now as an MVP for
Yeah.
beta.
Yep.
Do you think
Yep.
like that?
For a beta,
Okay,
we still have some fine tuning and they're little things. They're not even we're gonna extend. It's not like something's broke or anything in that regard.
right.
We're looking at, like you said, web search, the ability to because once your conversation can look outward to the internet and say, let me go ahead and get some more information
Well,
on that.
before we get into like
Yep.
new stuff,
Yep.
my sense is in terms of like as a beta release to start having people play
Yep.
with this locally running via Docker. We're pretty close,
Yep.
yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and we don't need to add anything like web search, for
No.
example.
Nope.
Okay, so what's left to be done? Like, so the first
Um,
thing, let's just go through. The first thing is there needs to be a website where you can go and you can figure out how to get this installed,
yep.
right?
Yep.
So I have a rough draft of that, but what I don't have is the easy one Docker, like whatever it's going to be for like these are the instructions that you follow to get this up and running
Yep.
on Docker, and we want that to be as simple as
Yep.
possible. So that's the first step. Where are we at with that?
We have that down to a clone it, create the .env, and then start up Docker. That's right
So
now where
three
we're,
steps
yep,
in the
3 steps.
terminal.
And I think that if I build an image, because like we're very close to where we're not playing with the code all the time, and we can get to some kind of release schedule, that if we build a Docker image, we could conceivably get this to a one line, you throw it in a terminal, and it starts. Just similar to like an open web UI approach.
And what's the trade-off? Like you said, putting it into an image because we're not messing with the code
Well,
so
we have,
much. What?
okay, yeah, because what it is when we get to that level, we're going to basically bake an image and give it to Docker to run or
Yep.
host. And
Yep.
so that you basically, instead of getting a generic image of like a Unix or a Linux environment, and then you put your code on top of it, your code's already baked into there. This is perfectly running the way we want it to do. So every time we do an update, we would have to create a new image and put it up to Docker. So we want to be, get out of the we're doing builds every second and stuff like that mentality to where we get to there. And that's where we come up with a release schedule. So like every Friday, we'll do a new image. So Monday, when we're talking about it, you could download it. We'd have that kind of pattern firing off to get to there.
Okay. So in the meantime, we
Yep.
have this three-step process that you have to go through.
Yep.
And let's say I do that, and tomorrow we make a bunch of updates. How do I get those updates?
That's where we need to put Watchtower involved so that it can look at your Docker and it can go, oh, there's an update. It updates for you. So,
And what if I don't want Watchtower? Is there
uh,
another way to do it?
there are probably other ways to do it. I'd have to investigate which ones we would like for that and go with the pluses and minuses on that on those different ideas.
Okay. Docker image.
Yep.
And what if I have the Docker image? How does
The
that work?
Okay, the Docker image is simply grab this image from Docker and it has our code baked into it. So
Okay.
you wouldn't get up to the minute updates. You would get our last release,
Okay.
which then we can control the production level.
Okay. So, all right. And I'm newer to this, obviously.
Yeah.
Dave's got decades of experience with this, but let me just understand. So, um, right now, if I want to update, is there a process? If I know there's an update, is there a
Yeah.
way for me to do that without the Docker image or no?
Yeah, yes,
Just
you go
rebase?
yep, exactly. Go into the directory, rebase it, and you have all the changes. It won't mess with your memory. It won't mess with your .env change settings that you have for right there. Just the code will get changed.
Okay, so to me, right now, what I would say is
Yeah.
the website can send people to GitHub. Like we
Yep.
won't have like a page on the website that makes it seem like if you don't know what GitHub is, you can do this.
Yeah.
Like you have to know what GitHub is, and we'll have our everything
Yep.
there. And you, if you want to be part of just playing around with this to either help us out or to build your own implementation, you know what GitHub is. We'll just send
Yep.
people there.
And it should be noted, I forgot. I did the script, the helper script on Friday and like that, which you don't even have to know the commands now. You just type start, you just type update, you type install, and it
Right.
takes care of all the stuff for you.
Great. So, all right. So the helper scripts. All
Yep.
right. All right. And then at what point do we want to move to a Docker image? And can we have both? Like, could we have like we're running and doing all these updates so you and I can test and
Yep.
merge and stuff, and then we just update the Docker image once a week?
Yes,
Can
yeah,
we do
exactly. We
that
would be
or
doing both. We'd have like I don't want to call it nightly, but it would become almost nightly when we do all our code changes. It's sitting there in GitHub. So if you have a developer keeping up on what we're doing, they would be able to just rebase or update by the script, and every day they would get the new changes that we've put forth and all like that.
okay?
Then once a week, we'll have our schedule. Maybe we have it every 15 days on the first and the 15th, or however, or on the third on the first. We would create a new Docker image, but with all the stable code, put that up on Docker. And so that anybody who's utilizing the Docker, which would be the Katie's mostly right there, they would always have our most stable code that's running that we have battle tested. We're liking this. It's not erroring like
Okay, so
that.
we can do both, is what
Yes,
you're
we
saying.
can.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Is there any reason not to just
Nope.
move to every Monday we do a new Docker release and we talk about what's in that release in
Nope.
this
Nope.
call?
We can do that. There's no reason whatsoever.
Okay. So next Monday, our goal will be a Docker release.
Yep.
Does that sound good? And
That
how
sounds
much work is involved in?
It's just really doing just one or two more steps, I believe, from what we have now. And I'll need to take a look at what Docker requirements are for uploading images these days. I know 6 months ago there were some comments going around it, but I haven't checked and
Okay.
played with it.
So step one is I'll update the website to go to GitHub.
Yep,
That way I can put the new website up. And um, I'll have just a coming soon because we're going to have managed hosting,
yep,
on that. If for people who want it, it'll be self-hosted. You can move hosts or do whatever you want. And that'll be just a coming soon,
yep,
for that. All right, because we're waiting on Nav for that. Okay. Now, okay, so I log in to my BrainDrive
yep,
once I've installed it via Docker, and now I need models. Okay.
yes.
So I don't want to launch with anything that even as a beta that just we know it doesn't work.
So we'll take the Olama out. So it's
Okay,
not
does it
even.
not work or
Okay, no,
do we
no,
not
Llama
know?
works, but we have not tested how well open source models are with
Okay,
this
so
entire
I would
process.
like to test Olama because
Okay.
here's what I would say on that. If we can get something working and I have, a reason, I mean, my MacBook is high end, but it's not
Yep.
like no one has this MacBook
Yep.
or equivalent Windows PC or something,
Yep.
So I would like to see if we can do anything with
Yep.
local models. And if we can, because some people may just want to use this to chat or whatever.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we really want to go after those people, but let's just see if my MacBook should be able to run that.
And I have
That,
three different styles of PCs for inferencing as well.
yeah,
So I can hit them, or actually four. I got multiple graphics cards that people would have. And then I have the Minis Forum, both versions of
yeah.
that, so that we could
So I would
actually,
just say if this is easy and I run a model, it's like, hey, this is pretty good. Then
yep,
we keep Olama in. If not, we take it out.
yep,
Okay. Testo Llama. All right. Now, our four pillars of brain drive, empowerment is number one, and the other three support that.
Yep.
That's freedom, ownership, and sustainability. So, one of the ways that we would like to fund this project so we can keep it free and open source is by giving people the option, but not the obligation, to
Yep.
use brain drive models, a genius, a smart, and a cost effective. Maybe a smart high school student, a smart college graduate, and a smart PhD student
Yep.
model. And eventually, I foresee us fine tuning models and like really dialing this
Yep.
into this interview spec and build plan process. But for now, I think we're just going to use Opus 4.6 for the Genius level, Sonnet 4.6 for the Smart level, which will be the default, and Haiku for the most cost effective
Yep.
model. So those will be the three levels, and we'd like to have people just be able to, especially Dave mentioned our Katie Carter persona.
Yep.
That's our non-technical
Yep.
persona. We'd like them to just be able to put $5 in and be off to the races, not
Yep.
have to go to OpenRouter, get an API key. They don't know what an API key is, et cetera, et cetera. So for the non-technical people, there's a default there. They can put $5 in and they're off and running.
Yep.
Okay. Um, and that will be a revenue model for BrainDrive LLC, which will help us fund this project. And we're going to put a 12.5% or 15%, I think we said, markup
Yep.
on those models, which for this use case should get you a long way still with $5,
I
right?
put $20 in 6 months ago, and I think
Yeah,
I think I'm at 18 now.
yeah,
I have
right,
left. So it's like
right.
I wonder if people realize those subscriptions,
Yeah.
unless you're coding, you're probably leaving a lot of money on that
Yeah,
table.
right. Exactly. So this will just make it super easy
Yep.
for Katie to get up and running. It'll give us a little bit of a revenue stream to hopefully fund the project with a little bit. And for the Adam Carter persona, which is, if you're listening to this call, you probably fit that persona. You're a developer, you're a builder. We're going to offer Open Router and Olama
Yep.
for people that want to run, if they already have Open Router, et cetera. And if you have something else that you want to use because you don't like those things, well, guess what? This is an open source project, and it's pretty easy to just add something new in, and you could contribute that to our project. You could keep it for yourself. You could give it to whatever you want to do. Go ahead. Have a nice day. It's sky's the limit. But we're gonna launch with its default brain drive models, hopefully,
Yep.
and then have Open Router and Olama available. Does that sound right to you,
Yep.
Dave?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, so we need to hear from Navneet tomorrow
Yep.
on there's a new Vercel API that we're going to use potentially for these models, and we need to figure all that out because I really would like to go out with BrainDrive models for this, especially once we have that Docker image, because to me, for our Katie Carter persona who we're going after, that non-technical user, if she's just willing to be non-technical plus just a bit of technical,
Yep.
she should be able to get up and running on this on her own computer.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And
So
I should say for the non for the technical user like me, if you're gonna blow this off, you might want to reconsider a little bit because of the fact that project button. I have taken your because this is all in your workflow how you build, and I've taken your spec plans and your build plans and turned them into code. And it goes very easily. So don't just dismiss this going, oh, I don't need career help or whatever
right.
like that. It's like being able to take this to those sub projects and build your own, and then take your idea that you fleshed out right there and turn it to code cannot be understated.
Yes, and this is what this new project
Yep.
is for right here for you to figure it out with your brain drive. And I could see people eventually just kicking off a coding session through brain drive, but right now, just take the plan and take it over to Claude Code, take it over to
Yep.
Codex and rock and roll. And then you can create unlimited amounts of these projects and they're easy to rename and delete. But this interview spec and build plan process, especially if you've been a developer who's worked with project managers in the past or kind of understand that, but haven't done the project management yourself, this gives you your own project manager
Yep.
basically to work with that you're the boss of instead of having to work for some other project manager doesn't know what they're talking about, right?
And when you're and if you look at this from a career helpful point, let's say you've never been in a project manager position, this gives you a step there. You get to
Yeah,
learn the lingo, you get how it comes together from I'm asking 17 questions. Oh, the spec plan. That's what okay. Now you get into like what user experiences are and the things that you have to put together. And no matter what you're doing, all of these steps are important. You
right.
could be doing RC cars, you could model railroads, you could be knitting.
Yeah,
There's a place for this, and it comes together. And when you start to see it, and it goes, the light goes on.
yeah. Okay, great. So that is the model side. I need to be able to talk to a model,
Yep.
and I need to be able to have a good exchange.
Yes.
So I've both of us, it sounds like, have gone through sort of an initial exchange.
Hmm.
I put together on your recommendation I told Claude Code to put together a test suite that has different personalities
Yep.
basically that it goes through these personas with. I've done a couple rounds of that. The biggest change that I've made, which I haven't done full testing on yet, but I think it's going to be a big deal, is really focusing on the user stories, which is what really brings these plans to life for
Yep.
software development. But I think the same thing is true for any project or relationships or life area, is really defining what it is that you want, what does that actually look like, and what does success look like once you get there? Because that's what the AI needs to help you
Yeah. It needs
with
to
your
see
plan.
that gold, the pile of gold in the horizon. Where
Yeah.
are you going?
Yeah. So I think, by next week, that should be really dialed in.
Yep.
And then I think we have the interview spec and build plan where you're set up and you're feeling like really good. The thing that I haven't been able to get working yet, but I also haven't worked on it, is the cross pollination. So there is a me profile that the AI is writing to as you go through an interview.
Yep.
So, for example, if I'm talking about my finances and I talk about the fact that I'm married and have two kids, etc., we want that information to be written to your profile. That's the kind of like the stuff that doesn't change very often. And when you start a new interview in a new area like relationships, it shouldn't be asking you if you're married and have any kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you've already disclosed that in another interview, and it should be carrying that information into the new. And this is where you start to get that compounding
Yep.
benefit. So I don't see any reason that the model's not capable of doing that, but it's not following that instruction well right now. So that to me would be, I'd love to have that
Yep.
dialed in. And then to me, that is the full initial experience, right? Which is I can go from I don't know what I want to do something here with my career to okay, I have a good starting plan now,
And in
right?
fact,
That would be
the same part, same place in both stance. You don't know what you want to do, but you know where you want to get to. And from
yes,
the AI can help you get there, but it needs to get to know you better.
yes,
So it's like you both started the same spot and have to take that walk. And that's where, like, okay, the cross pollination and getting that, because once that starts, as you said, it just starts to steamroll on you. And next
yes,
thing you know, it's like you're talking to the AI and it's like, oh, I already know this stuff. Let's get to what you really want to do.
yeah. That's that compounding
Yep.
benefit. And with BrainDrive, instead of it compounding for OpenAI, it compounds for you. All right. So to me, that's the initial foundation of everything.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, the next step beyond that, just to talk about, kind of where we need to go is okay, now I need to start coming back to my brain drive once I've got these initial
Yep.
areas dialed in, and I want to start updating
Yep.
BrainDrive on progress, and that may change. Hey, I thought I wanted this, but now that I see it, I actually think it's this.
Yep.
Hey, let's update your spec, rework your plan, and get on to the next step, right? So that's something that needs to be tested. I haven't done that yet. I don't know. It might work, it might not work. But that to me would be once we have a really nice interview spec and build plan where we're happy with that. Now it's about coming back to your brain drive and making updates.
Continuation.
Yes, and I'm thinking about potentially putting like a journal document on the project pages, so
Mhm.
it makes it sort of clear like you're supposed to come back here and make more entries,
Yep.
sort of things, and I also think that that will help. And then there's some things around this that I think are going to start to come into play once you're coming back and doing more updates like context window. Like right now, I have no idea how BrainDrive is managing the context window. Do you have a sense of that yet, or?
It's right now it's all pretty light, so we haven't had to really do anything in that regard.
Right.
But as we start to see memory populate, this
Yeah.
will get it. It's like we'll
Yeah.
need to get some
So
eyes
I
on
would
that one.
say like an understanding
Yep.
of logistically what is happening
Yep.
with our memory behind the scenes, with your memory behind the scenes in detail now that we're starting to populate would be a big to do. Okay. For now, like we
Yep.
want to understand all
Yep.
this. Okay. Um, then I think is when we get to once we have the foundation, interview spec, build plan, happy with that. Now I'm coming back, I'm updating.
Mhm.
Now I think the next step is pulling in external things
Yep.
to make that whole process richer.
Hmm.
So, for example, a lot of people want to get better at their personal finances, but they just don't know enough about personal finances. So, part of a plan might be here are some resources that you can
Yep.
go to learn more about personal finances, like a YouTube video, et cetera, that's like the AI has done a search that's very tailored to where you are. So we're not just like throwing a bunch of videos into the sidebar. It's like, no, some people don't even know what an interest rate is, and
Yep.
other people need help understanding the tax consequences of selling gold versus stocks. These are two totally different knowledge gaps.
Hmm.
And once you give the agent the capability to go out to the web, they can start bringing that back in. But I
And that
think
opens up an entire world right there.
yes, right. So, and then I think, it comes into where we can start having the agent start to maybe build some additional documents within their brain drive, like here's a list of learning resources, or here's a spreadsheet or a document where we're keeping track of your budget,
Yep.
things like this as part of finance. But it's all, I think the key is it's a continuation that builds on that foundation and sort of like an expanding sphere of capabilities that are all directly related to what we're building in that foundation.
Yep.
All right. And so then I think the fourth stage is the proactive AI heartbeat and context gardening, where up to this point, your brain drive, you're going to it only and talking to it, etc. Now it's going to start coming to you and it's going to say, hey, this is
Remember
what's on
that?
the agenda for today. Or, hey, remember you said you were going to eat better today. How did
Yep.
that go?
Yep.
Right? For your fitness project, etc. And this is also where I think, getting some of that proactive context gardening in place where the AI is doing broader sweeps through your memory to see if anything needs to be updated or that's out of date. And it's asking you, hey, should I update this or where all that comes into play. And then the last step that I think ties all this like is the final step of this foundation is additional interfaces.
Yep.
So where you can start talking to your brain drive from your email, from your text messages, from your WhatsApp, from devices, hopefully, and
Yep.
all that type of
Yeah, we've
stuff.
both been playing with that at different levels.
Right. So that to me is like it seems like a lot, but I feel like that's kind of the near term roadmap actually
It,
after we get kind of launched,
yeah, because it's like a lot of it is just, like the Olama. Okay, we just need to make sure it works, which we've already done. Now it's
Right.
like let's find some models to just suggest. You
Right.
know, get people started if that's the route you want to go, because some people just want to be local
Yeah.
and for the whole thing. So we get there, um, and then that checks off, and then it's like, hey, Docker, and get our stability release versus our nightly release pattern going. A
Yep.
lot of this is just, hey, you, a little time here and there, and it's done. Move on.
Yep. All right. So Docker website update that goes to GitHub initially. GitHub, I want to make sure that that's cleaned up for that. I
Yep.
did just an AI pull request, like told the AI like what we're doing and like go through the GitHub and clean up get the documents in like a rough draft,
Yep.
and I need to go back through that now. Um, and then I think the doc site cleanup
Hmm.
is a part of that because that should feed from the GitHub and it's all the old BrainDrive core stuff
Yep.
now. And then I think the community forums cleanup for me are going to be the big ones.
Yeah.
How about for you this week?
Let's see.
The Docker's number one, right?
I have the Docker, then the Llama testing for the models and such like that. There are a few little, I'll call it cleanups, like when you're having a conversation, and it does tool calling, it creates that list at the bottom. That list needs to be self-terminating, so to speak, and clean up so you're not seeing it grow because I could already my one conversation that went on for a while, that list started going. So I made a note of have they clean that up this week. And there are just a few little kind of tidbits, like nothing's glaring. They go, oh my God, this is broke,
Okay.
type thing. And then we probably need to have a conversation over on installing. It's because are we going to do an installer this time or not? I don't know if we
I
really need to with the
No,
Docker.
I think Docker. I think we're going to run into so many different issues if we start going the native installer route
Yep.
that it's not worth doing. Um, if we get a lot of requests for it,
Yeah.
we can reconsider.
Yeah.
And we have the managed hosting, and
Yep.
eventually we're going to have even a higher end tier for that. So I don't know. I think no for now.
Yeah. Because it sounds like a great idea, but I think it's a novel approach given the fact of most people that are wanting local are usually smart enough to do local.
Yeah,
As in, they have the tech skill, not necessarily smart, but they have that tech skill to do local, do it any way they want. And there's no way for an installer to encounter everything. So I agree with you. We'll just let the local people. You got Docker. You can install this without Docker if you wanted. The instructions are on my getting started. And then for the rest of the world, you can either try because Docker's pretty easy if you really wanted to go there. But if you don't own a PC, if you don't, have the right hardware to do local models and things like that, manage hosting. It's a cost-effective approach because tokens aren't free for anybody in this world.
right. Okay, so Docker install,
Yeah.
um, and then um, Olama testing.
Yeah. Olama testing.
I think before Olama testing, I would really understand what's happening with your memory
Okay. I had
and
that
the
three. I had that
processing.
three, but okay.
Yeah, but
That
I
could be
think that's
two.
going to be more important than
Yep.
because you're going to need that to know how to optimize Olama, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay. Uh, with your memory, and then getting Olama going, and then we'll have like full local,
Yep.
right? Do you think we're
Yes.
going to be able, yeah, with the and we're not going to worry as long as it'll run on a high-end consumer PC or laptop.
Yep.
That's what we're going for
Yep.
right now. It doesn't have to run on everybody's, right?
Yep. Yes. Because the first thing is find out what it'll run on. Rather than start too low, I'll probably start somewhere either the middle or high range and then work my way downward and find where the breaking point is. And there's very few, when you get into tool calling, there's actually very few models that will appease the requirements. So
Yeah.
it kind of makes testing a little easy for that.
Okay. All right, great. Anything else we want to talk about for this week?
Um, no, other than I'm happy we're finally showing it off now.
Yes, me too. This is awesome. All right, great. Well, with that, as we talked about at the beginning of the call, our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems. We do these calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern, live streamed on YouTube, and you can find the recordings over at our community at community.braindrive.ai. And we welcome any and all participation. So we hope to see you here next week or over on the community forums at community.braindrive.ai. Thank you.